I said my sister needs to stop bringing up her miscarriage for attention. So, my sister Emma is 30, and I'm 22. 10 years ago, she had a miscarriage and yeah, it was awful for everyone. Like, the whole family was devastated and it took her a solid 2 years to really get through it. We never figured out exactly why it happened, but it was a one-time thing. And since then, she's had 3 completely healthy kids including twins. So, that part of her life turned out fine. But here's the actual problem. Emma and I have never gotten along. When we were kids, she straight up hated me because she had to share our mom's attention. She also convinced herself that mom left her dad to be with mine, which wasn't even true. But she believed it anyway. She bullied me my entire childhood. I'm talking years of making my life miserable just because I existed, and she never grew out of it. The worst part is how she uses a miscarriage now. Every single time mom spends time with me or does something nice for me, Emma suddenly has a breakdown about what happened 10 years ago, and mom drops everything and runs to her every time. Earlier this year, I saved up and took mom to Paris for her birthday. It was supposed to be this special trip, just the 2 of us. We were having an amazing time. And then halfway through, Emma called mom crying about the miscarriage. Mom literally cut the trip short and flew home. I spent the rest of the vacation alone wandering around Paris feeling like garbage. Then there was a time I had a really bad manic episode. I ended up in the hospital bad. Mom kept saying she'd come visit me, and every single time she was about to leave, Emma would call with another miscarriage crisis. Mom never made it to see me once during the entire hospital stay. Not once, and here's the thing that makes it so obvious. Emma only brings up the miscarriage when mom is paying attention to me. That's it. Those are the only times she gets upset about it anymore. Any other day of the year, she's completely fine. She's busy with her 3 kids living her life and the miscarriage never comes up. But the second mom does something for me, suddenly Emma needs her because she's having trauma flashbacks or whatever. So last month I got super sick. I'm talking don't leave the bathroom for days straight, can only drink water type of sick. I'm pretty sure it was neurovirus. But I never made it to the doctor because I literally couldn't leave my apartment. It lasted about a week and I was miserable. Mom was being really sweet about it. She'd stop by every day after work to check on me and bring me stuff. On the last day, when I was finally starting to feel human again, I told her I thought I could actually eat real food. She offered to make me soup, which honestly sounded amazing because I hadn't eaten anything solid in days. She was in my kitchen halfway through making the soup when her phone rang. I heard her answer, and then her whole voice changed. It was Emma. I could hear her crying through the phone from across the room. Mom's face got all worried and she said, "Okay, honey, I'll be right there." She came back into the living room and told me she had to go. Emma was really upset about the miscarriage again. I was sitting there wrapped in a blanket, still feeling like death, and mom said, "I'd have to finish the soup myself." Then she just left. I sat there for a minute staring at the half-made soup on the stove. I was so tired. Tired of being sick and tired of this pattern that had been going on for years. So, I pulled out my phone and texted Emma. I told her she needed to stop bringing up the miscarriage for attention. I said it was messed up that she only ever got upset about it when I was getting attention instead of her. I told her everyone could see what she was doing, and it needed to stop. I finished making the soup myself and ate it and went to bed. The next morning, my phone was blowing up. Emma had screenshotted my text and sent it to mom and their dad and probably half the family. Everyone was calling me horrible. Mom said I was insensitive and cruel. Emma's dad, who I barely even know, sent me this long message about what a selfish bastard I was. My aunt called me disgusting. Emma sent me 15 messages about how dare I invalidate her trauma, and how I was always jealous of her and a bunch of other stuff. Mom hasn't talked to me in 3 days. Mom not talking to me for 3 days might not sound like much, but in our family, that was basically nuclear silence. Normally she'd text me every morning just to say good morning, or send me random pictures of her coffee, or something dumb she saw on Facebook. This time, nothing. No calls, no texts, just dead air. And honestly, that hurt more than all the angry messages combined. On the 4th day, she finally texted. Just one sentence, "We need to talk." My stomach dropped. I already knew this wasn't going to be a conversation where she tried to understand me. It was going to be about how I messed up, how I should apologize, how Emma was hurt, and how I needed to be the bigger person. I told her I could come over later that evening. She replied with okay. When I got to her house, Emma's car was already in the driveway. That should have been my sign to turn around and leave, but I didn't. I walked inside and immediately felt like I'd stepped into a courtroom, where I was the only one on trial. Emma was sitting on the couch, arms crossed, red-eyed like she'd been crying for hours. Her husband was there too, standing behind her like backup. Mom was pacing around the kitchen. The second Emma saw me, she started crying again. Loud, dramatic sobs. I can't believe you would say something so cruel to me, she said. You have no idea what that loss did to me. I didn't even get a chance to respond before Mom jumped in. She told me she was deeply disappointed in me. That what I said was unforgivable. That trauma doesn't have an expiration date. That just because Emma went on to have children doesn't mean the miscarriage stopped hurting. I told her I understood that trauma doesn't disappear. But this wasn't about grief, it was about timing. About pattern. About how it always magically came out the second Mom gave me attention. Emma snapped back that I was jealous. That I'd always been jealous of her. That I resented her kids and resented her life. That I couldn't stand the fact that Mom loved her just as much as she loved me. That one actually stung because it wasn't true, but it was what everyone believed. I brought up Paris, I brought up the hospital, I brought up the soup. I asked Mom, straight up, how many times she dropped me the second Emma called. Mom didn't answer right away. She just said, that's different. Different how? Because Emma cries louder? Because her pain is more dramatic? Because it's easier to rush to her than to sit with me? Emma's husband told me I was being heartless, and that if I had any empathy at all, I'd apologize immediately. Emma demanded an apology too, not just to her, but to the entire family. She wanted me to admit that I was wrong, that I invalidated her trauma, and that I'd never question her pain. Again, that's when something in me finally broke. I told them I wasn't apologizing. I said I was done competing with a 10-year-old. Tragedy that only came out when I existed. I said I was done being the afterthought. I said I was done watching my mom abandon me every time Emma needed to feel important. I told Mom that the problem wasn't just Emma, it was her. That she had trained Emma to believe that crying would always get her attention, no matter who got hurt in the process. Mom started crying then. She said she did the best she could. That she never meant to make me feel second. That Emma needed her more. I asked her when I had ever not needed her. The room went quiet. Emma stood up and told me if I couldn't be supportive, then maybe I shouldn't be part of the family anymore. She said she didn't feel safe around someone who could weaponize her trauma. Mom didn't stop her. She didn't disagree. She just looked at me like she was waiting for me to back down. I didn't. I told Mom that if she couldn't see the pattern now, she never would. I told her I loved her, but I wasn't going to beg for scraps of attention anymore. I said I was stepping back not to punish anyone, but to protect myself. I left. That was 2 months ago. Since then, I stopped reaching out first. I muted the family group chat. I blocked Emma on everything. At first, the guilt was overwhelming. I kept replaying the text in my head, wondering if I'd gone too far. Wondering if I really was cruel. But something interesting happened once the noise died down. I felt lighter. I didn't realize how much of my life revolved around waiting for Mom to show up, waiting for Emma to implode, waiting to be chosen. Without that constant tension, my anxiety actually eased up. I started sleeping better. I stopped bracing myself every time my phone buzzed. Mom has texted a few times since then. Nothing apologetic, just neutral updates. Hope you're doing okay. Let me know if you want to talk. I haven't replied yet. I don't know if I will. People love to say you only get one family. What they don't talk about is how damaging it can be to keep shrinking yourself, so someone else can stay comfortable. I didn't say what I said to be cruel. I said it because I was drowning, and nobody noticed until I finally yelled. Maybe one day we'll actually talk about it. Or maybe this is just how things are now. All I know is this, for the first time, I'm not disappearing so someone else can feel whole. And honestly, that feels like healing too. Story 2: I closed a $10 million deal and gave the money back to my wife for safekeeping overnight. But the next day, I was shocked to find my wife had vanished and her phones were switched off. She left a note saying, "Thanks for the money. I'm starting over with my boyfriend and good luck starting from scratch." I couldn't help but laugh because the bag she stole was actually Chapter 1, the disappearing act. Closing a $10 million deal feels like standing on the summit of the world. I'd been chasing it for months, traveling city to city, shaking hands, surviving brutal negotiations and sleepless nights. It wasn't just business. It was my everything. Years of grinding finally paying off. The final agreement was signed at 7:42 p.m. I remember because I looked at my Rolex and smiled, thinking, this is the moment I'll remember for the rest of my life. What I didn't know was how right I was, just not for the reasons I expected. I brought the physical contract, and what they call the celebratory handoff home. A symbolic leather duff filled with placeholder cash. It wasn't the actual transaction. Of course, that was wired, clean, legal. But the client had a flair for the dramatic. He wanted me to feel the weight of it. When I got home that night, exhausted but exhilarated, my wife, Rhea, was waiting in silk pajamas, wine glass in hand. She smiled as I set the bag down. "What's that?" I kissed her forehead. "A trophy, 10 million in proof. The deal's done." Her eyes widened, sparkling. Is it real? Technically, I chuckled. But it's symbolic, I'll show. It's packed with fake bills. The real money is in escrow. Transferring Monday morning. She laughed with me, but her hands lingered on the bag. You trust me with it? She asked playfully. I shrugged. Why not? You're my wife? Rhea smiled. Sweet software deadly. I'll keep it in the closet tonight, she said, just in case. I nodded, kissed her good night, and collapsed into sleep. And when I woke up, she was gone. Her clothes emptied, closet stripped, her phones disconnected, the money bag missing. On the kitchen counter, in place of her usual morning coffee mug, sat a single folded note. Thanks for the money, babe. I'm starting over with my boyfriend. Good luck starting from scratch, Rhea. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I laughed. A deep, uncontrollable laugh that echoed through the kitchen because the bag she stole was filled with hundreds of fake bills and a GPS tracker. Chapter 2, The Bag of Lies. Rhea thought she was clever. She must have waited until I was in a deep sleep, tiptoed to the closet, grabbed the bag, and fled into the night like some femme fatale in a Netflix heist drama. I imagined her smirking as she closed the door behind her, whispering to herself, he'll never see it coming, and she was right about one thing. I didn't see it coming. But she didn't see what I had prepared either. See, I didn't just deal with money. I dealt with risk, with snakes in suits and betrayal dressed in smiles. And somewhere deep down, a voice had always whispered that if I ever got too comfortable, I'd lose everything. So months ago, during early contract talks, I had a bag custom-made, indistinguishable from the real thing, but filled with high-grade legal replica currency, perfect for dramatic closings and stitched into the bottom lining. A GPS tracker disguised as a sewn-in logo tag. Not for theft protection, for insurance. I sat down at my home office desk and opened the tracking app. There it was, moving southbound, 68 miles per hour, somewhere along Highway 17. And it wasn't just the bag I had eyes on. I opened my laptop, brought up my cloud camera footage. To 17 a.m. Rhea in a hoodie and leggings slipping out the door. To 19 a.m. she stopped to kiss someone blurry, but unmistakably tall, scruffy and smug. His name was Darren, my ex-gym buddy. The guy who used to come over for game nights. The guy who always lingered a little too long when Rhea laughed at his jokes. I zoomed in on the video, paused at the frame of them carrying the bag together into his car, and then I smiled again because I knew exactly where they were headed. 3:31 a.m. somewhere outside the city. Darren's cheap little rental cabin on the outskirts of town wasn't much to look at, but I imagined to them it must have felt like the first step into a millionaire's life. They must have lit candles, popped open a bottle of stolen champagne, maybe even played music while they unzipped the bag, expecting crisp stacks of freedom and instead piles of fake currency. No real value, just air. My phone buzzed, a blocked number. I answered on speaker, sipping coffee like it was a regular Tuesday. John, Rhea's voice hissed, barely composed. What the hell is this? Good morning, sunshine, I said cheerfully. Sleeping in the woods now, are we? You gave me fake money. No, Rhea. You stole fake money. There's a difference. You planned this. You bet I did. She cursed under her breath. You're a psycho. No, I replied calm as a surgeon. I'm a strategist and I told you once. I only trust people who've earned it. You just proved why. I let the silence grow, then added, oh, and by the way, you and Darren might want to move fast. What do you mean? I refreshed the tracker, still pinging. I may have let your little heist run its course, but now I'm calling the cops and reporting the bag stolen with your names and your location. UWOULD in single quotes T.O. But I already did. Click. Chapter 3. The trap springs shut. 20 minutes after I hung up, the GPS tracker stopped moving. They must have ditched the car or the bag, thinking that would be enough to disappear. Amateurs. But I didn't just plan for betrayal. I planned for panic. I had already filed a formal police report. Theft of a symbolic asset related to a high V-value transaction with video footage of the theft, license plate details, and most importantly, a digital affidavit showing Rhea and Darren as the last to be in possession of the bag. Now, here's what most people forget. Even if the bag contained fake bills, intent to steal and misuse of company property still count as crimes, especially when tied to a major contract. And since the client's firm was copied in the report, they'd filed supporting documentation, making it federal-level corporate fraud, which meant law enforcement had no choice but to act quickly. 10:12 a.m. that same day, I received a photo from my lawyer. Darren, face down on the hood of a police car being cuffed. Rhea, tear-streaked and screaming in the background, barefoot in the gravel driveway of that trashy rental cabin. Along with the photo came a message, arrested without incident. Police retrieved the bag, confirmed its contents. Charges pending. Want to press for felony or walk away? I sat with that question and smiled. 2 days later, police station conference room. I agreed to meet with the authorities to close things out. Ria and Darren were being held for questioning. They hadn't been formally charged yet, but the DA was circling. I made my statement calmly, handed over footage, confirmed the bag was corporate property, signed the waiver to drop major charges on one condition, that the arrest records remained public, no sealing. No favors, Ria's lawyer pleaded with me during mediation. She'll lose everything if this goes on record, he said. She has no prior. Think of her reputation. I leaned back. Oh? I am. I said coldly. And the next man she meets will Google her name and know exactly what she's capable of. He blinked. She stole from her husband and ran off with his friend. She deserves a second chance when she earns it. I signed the final form, stood up, looked him in the eye. Tell her good luck starting from scratch. Chapter 4. Rebuilding without her. Ria was released on bail a few days later. No charges pressed for now. But the damage was already done. The moment the arrest photo hit local gossip sites, her world began to collapse. Friends gone, job fired the next morning. Social media comments flooded with words like thief, snake, and gold-digging traitor. But the real hit came from her family. I hadn't told them a word. I didn't need to because the internet did it for me. Her mother sent me an email. A short one. John, I'm so sorry. We had no idea. She's not the daughter we raised. You didn't deserve this. We support whatever you decide to do. I didn't reply because I was already done talking. Meanwhile, I rebuilt quietly, powerfully. The $10 million deal. It went through cleanly. My client, impressed by how I handled the attempted theft, actually introduced me to 3 new corporate partners. My firm expanded into 2 new markets within a month. But even better, I used Ria's betrayal to fuel my public brand. I published a LinkedIn article. What I learned about business after someone I loved tried to steal everything. It went viral. Not because I named names, but because the message was clear. Guard your empire, even from those who smile beside you. I got speaking offers, book deals, a documentary pitch, and all the while, Ria was stuck trying to rebuild a reputation that had never really been hers to begin with. Then came the final blow. A package arrived at her new address. I had a contact in real estate who helped me find out where she was renting now. Small, 1-bedroom, low-income neighborhood, a far cry from the high-rise apartment we once shared. Inside the package was a single fake bill, a flash drive with the surveillance footage, and a note handwritten in black ink. This is what you stole. This is what you lost. This is why you'll never matter to me again. Jay, no anger, no revenge threats, just closure. The kind that wraps like a noose. Quiet, tight, and unforgettable. Chapter 5. The final price. A year passed. It's strange how quickly life can transform when you cut away the rot. I was no longer the man who handed over his trust in a duffel bag. No longer the husband quietly hoping his wife would stop looking over his shoulder for someone better. I was sharper, wiser, richer in every way that mattered. The company I'd built from the ground up now had 3 new offices.